We have more breaking news now. This out of Brandon, where a husband and wife are dead following a murder-suicide. According to Brandon police, the couple was found on Toulon Street this morning after family conducted a welfare check on 30-year-old Jennifer Sheffield. Family at the scene say there were obvious signs of foul play inside the residence. Sheffield and her 40-year-old husband, Brandon Sheffield, were found inside. This is an ongoing investigation and will update you as more information becomes available.
She sat in her car in a parking lot in Brandon, Mississippi, holding her phone, and she told the entire internet the truth.
So, I'm about to be a newly single mom, and I am in the middle of a divorce. My husband is being incredible though, like really and truly, like we're working together, everything's great, we're splitting everything down the middle, like, you know, everything is good. It is a very civil divorce with our daughter in mind, and I really appreciate that. However, you know, I'm gonna be a mom, single income right now, and he will be helping with her, he will be supporting her, you know, so essentially, like, I'm really thankful for that, and that I will not have to worry so much about supporting her. However, I will be on a very limited income with buying a new house and, you know, paying a mortgage and all that stuff. I've never done this before. I've never been on my own before. So yeah, if you just have any tips, like, I would really appreciate it, because, like, I'm a little scared right now.
She was wrong about one thing. And that one thing would take her life 18 days later. Her name was Jennifer Marie Sheffield. She was 30 years old. She was a biochemist, a healthcare worker, a mother, and a woman in the middle of becoming a doctor. And the world only learned her name after she was already gone, reduced, in the headlines, to her final 2.5 weeks. On investigative crime documentary, we're going to do something the viral coverage never did. We're going to give Jennifer her whole life back. Before we begin, if you believe victims deserve to be remembered as more than the way they died, do me a favor, hit that like button, drop a thought in the comments, and subscribe to Investigative Crime Documentary. It genuinely helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them. Jennifer Marie Sheffield was born on the 9th of September, 1994, in Mississippi. She grew up in a close-knit family, the kind where love wasn't a special occasion. It was just the weather. Her brother described their family as a constant source of support, the steady ground beneath everything she ever attempted. And she attempted a lot. Faith was at the center of all of it. Jennifer was a devoted follower of Christ, and by every account from the people who knew her best, that faith wasn't decorative. It wasn't a label. It shaped how she handled hard things. It's a big part of why, in the final weeks of her life, facing a divorce, a move, a complete reinvention of her future, she was still choosing gratitude over fear. That's not naivety. That's a discipline. That's a person who decided, on purpose, how she was going to walk through difficulty. Now, here's the part the headlines almost completely erased. Jennifer wasn't just a name attached to a tragedy. She was, in the most literal sense, a scientist. She earned a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry. Let that sit for a second. Biochemistry. One of the most demanding undergraduate paths there is. Then she went further and earned a Master of Science degree in biology and medical science. And she still wasn't finished. At the time of her death, Jennifer was enrolled in the Master of Medical Sciences program at Mississippi College in Clinton, Mississippi, working steadily toward a career in medicine. Her academic advisor there was Dr. Stan Baldwin, Dean of the School of Science and Mathematics. After she died, he didn't offer some hollow, polite statement. He called her extremely bright. He said she was eager to learn. He said she was a blessing to everyone who knew her. That is a dean. A man who has met thousands of students. Describing one who stood out. And she wasn't only a student. Jennifer worked in healthcare. She moved between professional worlds like it was second nature. The clinic, the classroom, the campus. Her obituary mentions 3 different communities she loved: her band family, her MC family at Mississippi College, and her UMMC family at the University of Mississippi Medical Center. 3 separate worlds. She belonged to all of them. The people in each one used the same kind of language about her. Passionate, radiant, selfless, devoted to helping the people around her. That word helping comes up again and again. And it explains everything about why she was headed into medicine in the first place. For Jennifer, helping people wasn't a career choice she made on a spreadsheet. It was simply who she was. She just went looking for a profession where the thing that came naturally to her could become the work of her life. And then there was the role that mattered most of all. Jennifer was a mother. Her 2 daughters, Gracie and Kylie, were young, and they were the gravitational center of her entire world. They were the reason she went back to school in her late 20s. They were the reason she was building a new income, planning a new home, mapping a new life. And, as we'll see, they were the reason she was scared. Not scared for herself. Scared of getting it wrong for them. She also, for what it's worth, loved animals. She had several dogs, and friends remember her as the kind of person whose stories about her pets could make a whole room laugh. So picture her, fully, before we go any further. A 30-year-old scientist. A graduate student. A healthcare worker. A woman of deep faith. A mother of 2. Someone who, by every single account, walked into rooms and made them brighter. That is the woman the internet would soon meet. But only at the very end of her story. On the 10th of December, 2024, Jennifer sat in her car somewhere in Brandon, Mississippi, turned on her camera, and recorded a video for TikTok, where she had built an audience of several thousand followers. It was not a polished video. It wasn't trying to be. It was a real person asking real people for real help. She explained that she was about to become a single mother. She said she had never been on her own before. Never lived alone, never managed a household by herself. And she asked her followers for practical advice. Tips on saving money. Tips on making money. Anything they could offer. She admitted, plainly, that she was a little scared right now. She wasn't asking for pity. She was asking for a strategy. And then she said the thing that, after her death, the entire internet would fixate on. She talked about her husband. She said he was being incredible. She said it was a civil divorce. That they were working together, splitting everything down the middle, with their daughter in mind. She said he'd be helping support their child, and that she was thankful she wouldn't have to carry that weight entirely alone. She said, more than once, that everything was good. She also did the math out loud, the way anyone planning a new life does. She knew she'd be on a single income. She knew she'd be buying a new house, taking on a mortgage, managing all of it solo. That was the part she wanted help with. That was why she made the video at all. She posted it 18 days before she died. After her death, that video was viewed millions of times. By some counts, well over 2.5 million. And here is where I want to be careful, because the way that video got framed online did Jennifer a quiet disservice. The viral coverage treated it as eerie. As haunting. As the ultimate dramatic irony. A woman praising the very man who would kill her. And look. I understand why people reacted that way. There is a terrible gravity to watching someone speak warmly about a person who would soon do the unthinkable. But that framing is incomplete. Because what that video actually shows isn't naivety. It's honesty. It's courage. Think about what it takes to sit in a car and tell thousands of strangers, I'm scared. I've never done this. I don't fully know what comes next. Please help me, most people can't even say that to their closest friend. Jennifer said it to the open internet. She was transparent about her fear, transparent about her finances, transparent about the limits of what she knew. That's not a woman who was fooled. That's a woman who was brave. She was building something, she knew she couldn't build it alone, and she had the humility to ask. Her last public words weren't a warning. They were an invitation. An open hand, reaching out for help with a future she fully intended to have. Hold on to that, because the world is about to remember her for 18 days. We're not going to do that here. Saturday, the 28th of December, 2024. The day after Christmas had come and gone. The decorations were still up in half the homes in Brandon, Mississippi. At around 19 minutes past 7 in the morning, officers from the Brandon Police Department arrived at a residence on Toulon Street. They were there for a welfare check. The call had come from Jennifer's family. They had been trying to reach her. They couldn't. And when family members got into that home, what they found alarmed them immediately. What police would later describe as obvious signs of foul play. Inside the residence, officers found two people deceased, Jennifer Sheffield, age 30, and her estranged husband, Brandon Sheffield, age 40. Both had died of gunshot wounds. Brandon Police Chief Joseph French addressed it that same day. Based on the preliminary investigation, he said, it appeared that Brandon Sheffield had taken Jennifer's life and then his own. He called it an ongoing investigation. He thanked the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, whose crime scene unit was brought in to help process the scene. There is one detail here that I need you to absorb slowly, because it is the heaviest part of this entire story. One of the couple's daughters was believed to have been in the home at the time. In the hours that followed, authorities released no information about the child. And out of respect for two little girls who did nothing to deserve any of this, we are not going to speculate about it tonight. We'll leave the rest where it belongs, private. The official date of death listed in Jennifer's obituary is the 27th of December. The discovery came the following morning. So somewhere in the quiet between Christmas and New Year's. In a house on an ordinary street, in an ordinary Mississippi town. A woman who had spent her whole life helping other people had her life taken by the one person she'd publicly insisted she could trust. The investigators reached their determination, a murder-suicide. No charges would ever be filed, because there was no one left to charge. No trial would ever take place. The man responsible had died at the scene. And that, the absence of any courtroom, any verdict, any reckoning, is part of what makes this case sit so uneasily with so many people. There was no day in court for Jennifer. There was no justice in the ordinary sense. There was only the aftermath. And the aftermath, as we're about to see, became its own kind of controversy. Let's talk about Brandon Sheffield, because we have to. He was 40 years old, a decade older than Jennifer. By the accounts of the people who knew him, he was, in their words, a great brother, an uncle, a friend. He loved working on cars. He loved fishing. He loved disc golf and family vacations. His own family, in the days after, were left struggling to reconcile the man they thought they knew with what he had done. The couple had recently decided to separate. Jennifer had begun the divorce process. And by every visible sign, including Jennifer's own public words, that separation had, up to that point, seemed amicable. One of Jennifer's friends, Faye Lott, knew both of them. She had been there when they met. And in the aftermath, she was painfully, admirably honest about her own confusion. She said Brandon had never been a violent person that she was aware of. She said she'd always loved him for how he loved Jennifer. And she said it was hard trying to understand something they would never be able to understand. That phrase, something we will never be able to understand, kept surfacing in the days after. From people who loved Jennifer. From people who cared about Brandon. It's what we say when we're stunned. When nothing in a person's past seemed to point toward what they finally did. And I want to handle Faye Lott's words with care, because she didn't say anything wrong. She told the truth of her own experience. Her grief is real, and her honesty is rare. But her words point to something we have to name plainly, because it might be the most important thing this entire case has to teach us. In the study of intimate partner homicide, one of the most consistently reported details from the people who knew the person who did it is exactly this: there was no visible violence before. It catches everyone off guard. And the uncomfortable truth that researchers have documented over and over is that lethal violence does not require a long, visible history of physical abuse. The risk factors that experts track are broader than bruises. They include things like access to firearms, coercive control, financial entanglement, and, critically, the stress of an impending separation. These are documented warning signs that often don't look, from the outside, like what a friend would ever call violence. And here is the single most important fact in this entire episode. According to researchers, advocates, and decades of data, the most dangerous moment for a woman in an abusive or controlling relationship is very often not while she's in it. It's when she leaves. The period of separation, and the weeks immediately after, represent the peak of danger. One widely cited analysis of women killed by a current or former partner found that a large share had already left or were in the process of leaving. And that a significant portion of those killings happened within the first month, and the overwhelming majority within the first year of separation. Now look at where Jennifer was. She was leaving. She was making a plan. She was asking the internet how to buy a house on a single income. She was building a life that did not include Brandon Sheffield. I want to be very precise here, because precision matters and fairness matters. None of this proves that Brandon Sheffield was secretly violent for years. We don't know that, and we're not going to pretend we do. What the evidence shows is something quieter and, frankly, more frightening. The absence of prior visible violence is not the same as the absence of risk. When we hear, "he was never violent before," and we read it as, "so no one could have known," we are working from a definition of danger that the research has shown, again and again, to be dangerously incomplete. The pattern Faye Lott was describing isn't a mystery without a name. It has a name. It has a body of research behind it. And the more people who understand it, the more lives it can save. That is the part of Jennifer's story that can actually protect someone else. And it's why we're spending real time on it instead of rushing past it. Now we come to the part that made a lot of people very angry. And I think their anger was right. On the 5th of January, 2025. 9 days after Christmas, 8 days after Jennifer's death. Her family gathered at the Ott and Lee Funeral Home in Brandon, Mississippi. There was a visitation in the early afternoon, followed by a memorial service. It was a joint service. Jennifer was memorialized alongside the man who had killed her. When photographs from the service circulated online, people noticed something that stopped them cold. Jennifer did not appear to have her own portrait displayed as the central image of her own memorial. Instead, she appeared mostly in shared photographs. Present as part of Brandon's life, rather than as the subject of her own. The reaction online was immediate and loud. The detail was striking enough that it drew comment from public figures with enormous platforms, including tennis legend Martina Navratilova, who reshared it and said there was so much wrong with the situation she could barely find the words. And that captured what a lot of ordinary people were feeling. The woman who lost her life seemed, in the arrangement of her own farewell, to have become a supporting character. The man responsible seemed, somehow, to be at the center. For a lot of people, that stung. And I understand exactly why. But I want to be fair to Jennifer's family, too. Because what happened at that funeral is not unique to this case. It is a recurring, painful feature of how murder-suicides get handled in the immediate aftermath, and it's worth understanding rather than just condemning. When the person who committed the violence dies at the scene, the family is dropped into an impossible situation. They are grieving someone they loved, while at the very same time absorbing the unthinkable knowledge of what that person did. Both feelings are real. The grief is real. The horror is real. The desire to bury someone with dignity is human. And in the fog of those first few days, with funerals to plan and children to protect, things get decided fast, under unbearable pressure. So I don't think the answer is to attack a grieving family. But I do think this case exposes something cultural that we should say out loud. We are not very good, as a society, at centering a murdered woman when the man who murdered her is being mourned in the same room. The right response to that difficulty is not to erase the victim. It's to hold both truths at once, without pretending they're equal. Brandon's family's grief is legitimate. His children will grieve him, that's allowed. None of that requires Jennifer to be diminished in the very space that was supposed to honor her. She deserved her own photograph. She deserved to be the subject of her own memorial. And she earned that. Not by the way she died, but by 30 years of being a remarkable, fully realized human being. There was a fundraiser, too. A GoFundMe organized by a member of Brandon's family, set up to support Gracie and Kylie, with a stated goal of $15,000, and donations climbed past $9,000 in the first days. The intention behind it, making sure 2 little girls are cared for, is something no decent person could argue with. The framing around it drew some controversy. But the goal itself, supporting the children, is the one thing in this story everyone can agree on. So let's end where we should have been allowed to begin. With Jennifer. Jennifer Mario Sheffield was a biochemist who became a healthcare professional who was, at the moment her life ended, in the middle of becoming a doctor. She was a daughter. She was a big sister. She was a mother to Gracie and Kylie, who were the reason for very nearly everything she did. She was a woman of deep faith, a lover of laughter and travel and a house full of dogs, and someone who, by every account, made the people around her feel cared for. She was 30 years old. And she had a life she was genuinely looking forward to. Think about everything that existed in the future tense for her. 2 daughters who needed their mother. A divorce she was finalizing. A graduate degree she hadn't finished yet. A house she hadn't bought yet. A mortgage she hadn't signed yet. An entire version of her life that she had already designed in her mind and was working, step by careful step, to build. None of it exists now. Not because Jennifer stopped wanting it. Not because she made a mistake. But because she was 30 years old, and another person decided that her wanting a life of her own was something he would not allow. That sentence, that one decision, is the only part of this story that belongs to him. Everything else belongs to her. The science. The faith. The 2 little girls. The courage it took to sit in a car and tell the world she was scared and ask for help anyway. That honesty wasn't a warning. It was an invitation into a future she had every right to live. Her obituary ends with a line I keep coming back to: she will forever be cherished by everyone who knew her. Tonight, I hope, by a few more people than that. If you need help, if you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence or abuse from a partner, help is available, and it's confidential. In the United States, you can reach the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or you can text the word START to 88788. Support is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you're ever in immediate danger, call 911. And please, if there is a woman in your life who is leaving a relationship right now, remember what this case teaches. He was never violent before is not the same as she is safe. Check on her. Stay close. The most dangerous moment is often the moment she walks out the door. These cases tend to stay with us long after the research is done. If Jennifer's story stayed with you, if you think she deserved to be remembered as the whole person she was, then do this one thing: share this video with someone who should hear it. Hit the like button so the algorithm carries her story further. Drop a comment with her name, because names matter. And if you're new here, subscribe to Crime Docket USA. We tell these stories with care, and we tell them all the way through. Thank you for watching. Take care of each other. Crime Docket USA *.